Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Blog Talk. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning. Good morning. It's Friday, August the 24th. Let's see who is going to join us this morning. Lots going on. Good morning. Good morning. I see you chiming in. Good morning. I am Tamara Johnson-Shealey. Good morning. Woo, today's broadcast, guys, quite interesting. Political corruption from the White House to Georgia. Many believe that this administration will go down as the most corrupt in the history of this nation. The White House has been riddled with controversy, and now a guilty plea from the president's personal attorney. You can almost bet that he is going to sing like a canary. With Georgia, we ain't that far removed from our share of controversy and corruption. We have a sitting Secretary of State who oversees our elections and our election process, and he is running for the governor at the same damn time. As we say in the urban community, where they do that at? Well, these corrupt politicians do that right here in the state of Georgia. I am your host, Tamara Johnson-Shealey. I want to thank you for joining me on this week's broadcast. Always a pleasure to have my friend David. Let's see where he is this morning. There he is. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Tamara.
Good morning. Always a pleasure to have my other trusty co-host, Mr. John Armwood. Let's see where he is this morning. Let's bring him into the broadcast. Awesome. Hey, John.
How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, guys. All this corruption around us down in Randolph County just this morning. That vote that they were trying to close 7 of the 9 precincts. They shut it down in Randolph. Atlanta showed up and showed out.
Yes, I love this headline this morning.
Yes.
Associated Press, they did it.
They did it. You know what was going? Yeah, they were trying to shut down precincts, 7 out of 9 precincts in a very black county down in South Georgia.
And the 2 they were trying to leave open, only one served the majority of black residents and the other was in the white community.
Wow.
This was purposeful. And I think there's a great lesson from this. And that is that if you struggle, you agitate, and you organize, you can win victories. And this is their example. Now we have to make sure that they don't play with the voting results and keep people away from the polls. We need poll watchers down there. We need people to watch the count to make sure that this is done correctly, because it's obvious what they're trying to do.
I would just like to point out that this is low-tech voter suppression. You know, this is the kind of stuff that's been going on for decades, if not generations. And so it's very important that we keep in mind the high-tech stuff, the manipulation of the computer technology, right? But it's also really important to keep in mind that there's a lot of low-tech stuff that's very, very common and very, very it's been practiced for years and years and years. These people know what they're doing.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. Back in 2016, I believe it was, 6,000 Georgia voters' information was exposed during the hacking.
Yeah.
Our Secretary of State had been warned about it by the federal government, had been granted monies by the federal government to upgrade the system. He hadn't taken them. And in Kennesaw State, who was doing the assistance in the voter machine operation and keeping the database, had pointed out to him that there was a problem. He did nothing. And then mysteriously, the servers, after the hack, everything was erased from the servers.
That's right. That was in the Ossoff Handel, 6th congressional district race.
Yes.
And we still don't know who actually won that race. There's no way to verify it. It's just that Ossoff conceded. And, maybe he shouldn't have done that. I don't know, John. You were in there. So, but that's talk about election corruption. That was really a doozy.
Oh, it was. And you could see the machinations going on, the process going on the whole time. And you could see the organization. As I mentioned, I think on a prior broadcast, 11 o'clock the morning of the runoff, I knew that Ossoff had lost. It was obvious to me. Mm-hmm. And I called someone who was calling from New York and told them that we're not going to win this, because the other side was organized.
Yeah. So we got some corruption going on in the White House, y'all. To have a sitting president. Oh my God, this is like, reality gone wrong. Like,
I love this headline.
What does it say? I can't read it. Tell us what it says.
Got the better. It's the New York Times headline: political pleading guilty, Cohen implicates president. It's one of those New York Times headlines. I'm an old newspaper person. I started as a paper boy when I was 12. And so I saved newspaper clippings. So I had to print that one, and I probably will frame it.
Yeah. Okay. Framed. I like that. Framed. That's right.
I have newspaper clippings framed in the corner over here in my apartment, going back to the 70s.
Wow.
So, I like that one. I saw that one. It was like, oh my goodness. And because it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the end.
Yes.
David.
Yeah, very possibly.
Yeah. I think it's gonna trickle down, and he's next. He's next. He's out. I'm just waiting on the moment, that very moment where he's out of office. I'm
predicting by Labor Day. But it's funny. I downloaded.
That's like around the corner.
I downloaded for my last vote the H2O GATE blues with Gil Scott-Heron when Nixon was going down the tubes.
Wow.
I'm going to use an edited clip of that in a video I do for my YouTube channel this week.
Yeah, the corruption is real here in all around us, and that's partly the reason why I have ventured into law school, because the law is being used as a weapon, and they're using it against people. They're using it to the demise of this country. I just, we have to be more informed and more engaged. And I know, John, you're a law professor and you were an attorney yourself. The system is we need good people on the inside to do the right thing.
I think we also have to, I think David would agree with me on this 100%. We have to understand the whole structure of the socio-political and economic structure system. Duncan Kennedy, a Harvard law professor back in the early 80s, wrote a book which was stunning to me at the time. And I was really glad to read it. And it was entitled Law School, the Reproduction of Hierarchy. And his whole argument that all the legal education was about was the reproduction of hierarchy.
Wow.
He and Roberta Unger at Harvard talked about that, along with Derek Bell, the three of them. They were the critical studies people. And they wrote the book that was just purely there to reproduce hierarchy. So when I got out, and actually while I was there, I worked at King and Spalding, which was the largest law firm, doing bond work. And it was boring as could be, but I could see all they cared about. You had ex-governors in the partnership. One of the managing partners was the former U.S. Attorney General, Griffin Bell. Nice guy, but it's all about the rich and powerful. So we've had to use the system to fight against that. And I look back to Thurgood Marshall, that's my hero in that battle, because he started in the 1930s with strategies that to try to overthrow the decisions that put in place this power structure. And at the end of his life, he was known on the Supreme Court as a great dissenter because he felt he failed. He felt that the power structure was not changing at all. That all those civil rights decisions were a failure.
Yeah, I think that that my reading of American history, it says to me that the Supreme Court has been one of the bastions of right wing concentrations and in favor of concentrations of power and of white supremacy. So the Supreme Court, to look to the Supreme Court as there's really only one brief period in U.S. history when the Supreme Court had actually moved the political discussion to the left, and that was the 50s and into the civil rights.
Yeah, the Warren Court.
Huh?
But even that,
yes, absolutely.
Even those were if you read the decisions, I've read the opinions, especially Brown is so instructive.
About
the fight against communism. It was about appearances.
Yeah, absolutely, and all due speed, and all deliberate speed, and all of the things that created the possibility or the opening for the massive resistance in Virginia, to school integration, and then all of the segregation academies that sprung up throughout the South, and then on top of that, everything that went on in the North. That New
York, Boston got all the attention. You remember Boston back in the 70s? It was horrible. I went through it in the 60s in New York. I was part of the first group of people that integrated the New York public schools in 1961. I can tell you it was a harrowing experience. It totally changed my life. And that's what got me politically motivated as a child.
Remember, in New York City, one of the things that went on was a kind of double whammy, which is that in 1964, there was a mass boycott by Black and mostly Puerto Rican, Hispanic, because they were being segregated and nothing was being done about it. So there were hundreds of thousands of school kids with their parents who went out on a strike, and the response from the teachers union was mediocre, lukewarm at best.
And they actually were very much opposed. Albert Shanker was the head of the teachers union.
That's
right. The strike in 1969.
Well, that's what I'm getting to, is that strike in 67 and 68 was the result of Reverend Milton Galamison, who he was the leader
of Brownsville.
Well, then after it was clear that there was no support in this liberal bastion, for integration of the schools, that's when they proposed the community controlled school districts. And out of that, people don't know the whole history. They just know that there were these community controlled school districts. And then the teachers union, the UFT, led by Shanker, as you say, who then became the president of the AFT, the National Union, went on this strike against these community control school boards.
52 days. My mother was a school teacher in Staten Island during that strike. They closed all the public schools in Staten Island. Every single day, my mother rode the bus, the boat, and the train and went down to 111 Livingston Street, which was the Board of Education, and sat in the office from 8:50 in the morning to 2:45 because she was refusing to strike and be part of Albert Shanker's union.
Right.
52.
And a lot of people, a lot of teachers, many Black and some white, that refused to participate in that strike, set up freedom schools and all that. So, but in any case, the thing that I think is useful to keep in mind is the perspective that there had been a mass movement to integrate the schools 2-3 years prior to the community controlled school districts, and it was just turned back.
Yeah, it was started in 1961. I was part of it.
Yeah.
I was part of it. That's when the busing, it was voluntary busing in 1961. And I can remember getting off the bus the first day and being spat on by parents outside of PS 198 in Flatbush in Brooklyn. I mean, spat on. That's the first time I was ever called the N-word, walking out into the playground at lunchtime. Kid asked me, are you a nigger? And I didn't know what the word meant. I went home and asked my father, am I a nigger? I'll never forget that day.
Wow.
I will never. And the teacher refused to let me participate in class elections by saying Miss Cooper was her name. The bus children are not ready to participate in class elections. And she told me to put my name down. I was nominating a little white girl in my class for vice president, and she would not let me participate.
Wow. Talk about lessons.
Yeah. And the psychological impact is the rest of the class, of course, laughed.
Yeah.
I was the only black kid in the class. I was the only bus child in the class. And so it was a very, very painful introduction into race in America.
And not only that, the corruption of democracy, that brings to the entire class. I mean, they may not have understood what was going on, but that certainly was a terribly corrupting, corrosive kind of experience. There were always these exceptions to the rule. It's the Dred Scott decision. But
it was always that way. I mean, we moved to Staten Island March 8th of 1962. The first day of school, still the New York City school system, they refused to accept. My mother and I came in, my records, my academic records, my Iowa test scores. They said they were impossible that I could have those scores. And they refused to accept them and refused to put me into the IGC, the intellectually gifted child's class. And then when I repeated the scores later on, they said, they used to call me, oh, he's the Negro child who reads so well, to my face. It was horrendous. And by high school, I was in an all largely Italian high school, and I got my butt kicked, almost lost my eye. Used to get called a nigger every day. It was a horrendous experience, but it shaped me to the point that by the time I was 16, I was working with the Lindsay campaign. And Lindsay had been the one who had really pushed for that integration with the and participation in the Ocean Hill-Brownsville school district. He was a very liberal, very progressive mayor, and he was
Republican.
The right thing. And he was a Republican. That is correct. And it was funny. He later became a Democrat, but back then there were liberal Republicans. We had Jacob Javits as governor. I mean, Charles Goodell was senator after Bobby Kennedy got shot. I worked on his campaign. I mean, I worked on Republicans before I worked for Democrats.
So you don't think there are liberal Republicans today, John?
Oh no. They were pushed out of the party.
Extinct. Yes.
Lindsay became a Democrat in 1973. I mean, we worked on Bella Abzug's campaign when she first ran. Some of you may know she was a socialist from the 40s and one of the early feminists in American politics in New York. And
we have a question. We have a question, Don. How do we stop these politicians from doing what they're doing? We see what we see going on keeps black and brown people from voting. What's your thoughts? How do we stop these politicians from doing what they're doing? The corruption is real, and John and David, they're historical, but the corruption is real.
It's agitating, just like people did about the Randolph County issue. We can win these small victories by agitating, publicly throwing it in their face, getting out in the street, do whatever is necessary to bring it to a wider attention. Use the media whenever possible to highlight what is going on. Shine a light on their corruption.
Yeah, and we also need to be aware of the tactics that are being used, so that we don't get tricked. like, for instance, things like voter caging, which Greg Palast has been bringing up, and Karen Handel, by the way, who's running in the, who's now the congressperson from the 6th Congressional that Lucy McBath is running against. She's one of the people who introduced it into Georgia.
Explain for our audience what caging is, please, David.
Huh?
Explain that for our audience. The caging.
I didn't get what you said.
Oh, you mentioned the phrase voter caging. I was just asking you to explain it for our audience.
Yeah. Well, as I understand it from Greg Palast, if people do not vote in 3 consecutive elections, they are sent from the Secretary of State's office. They're sent a postcard or a letter or something that says you have to confirm that you are still at the address that you are, and that you are still. Otherwise, they throw you off the rolls.
Exactly. And that's one of many tactics.
Yeah.
Another tactic that we're using here in Georgia was going over the rolls. And if a hyphen was in the wrong place, if any typographical was there, they would purge you with the rolls without notice.
Without notification. And then a number of other things. I mean, there's just outright confusion and intimidation that's used very, very often. I mean, there are examples. I don't remember whether this is here in Georgia or some another place where there were mailings sent out or emails that were sent out that said you don't have to vote on this day. You can wait for this period of time. A total disinformation campaign
and giving out wrong polling places. I mean, this happened in New Jersey, giving out wrong polling places. Then, David, I think the question for our voters and our audience is, what can we do about this? And please post your comments online. What can we do about this? Tamara, you've been a candidate.
Yeah. I'm very vocal, and I use, my favorite medium is social media. I love Instagram. I like Facebook, and I'm very vocal and doing these broadcasts, spreading the word. We're asking you to share this broadcast. We have to continue to have these conversations with our neighbors, with our friends, with our families. We have to be, I'm very vocal. So how do we stop this? We keep being vocal. We organize. In my industry, I am the senior advocate of the beauty and barber industry politically nationwide, where we address policy that affects our industry. But we also, as we're organizing and galvanizing my industry, we're also working to help them be catalysts in their communities. We understand that our hair salons and our barbershops are hubs, particularly in the Black community. So we are teaching our people in our industry how to be politically engaged, but taking that power and translating that into being socially responsible to everything that's happening around you. So being vocal and organizing is key. The grassroots effort, I've always, as a candidate, it wasn't about the big dollars for me. I never went out looking for big dollars. You can go back and look at my disclosures. I never had any big dollar contributions. I took money from the labor union because I totally and 110% support labor and everyday and working people. So yes, the labor movement supported me. But as far as my contributions, you can go back and look. In this past primary, she outraised me probably, 10 times based on, her numbers versus mine. But it was never about the money. It was about the people. And when you organize and mobilize and galvanize people, that is your power. So how do we stop these politicians from doing what they're doing? We're vocal and we call them out every single time. You get away with nothing when you are a politician, nothing.
And there's also a lot of the law firms have this pro bono thing that they volunteer, right, John? Do voter on election day, because I remember volunteering to do poll watching, and they had a a central number that you called in on. If there was something wrong at your poll, they would send a lawyer out, right? So that's all part of what we need to do as activism. I know there's nothing radical about doing that, but
it's important. I do it every year here. My building is a polling precinct. I'm downstairs every election watching the poll go. I can't stay inside all the time, but I go in, I get the numbers, every hour, how many people have voted, and I'm outside counting to see what the numbers are. So at the end of the day, my tally, and I get their tally. And fortunately, my precinct, they post the tally right out at the door. So I can kind of figure out if what I saw is what's coming out.
And
I trust them.
One of the big things that about that really suppresses the vote is this thing that just happened in Randolph County, not having available enough polling places in poor and working class communities for people to be able to vote. I was mentioning this to Tamara the other day. My polling place is in a Baptist church right up the street from me. There, I can literally walk to the polling place, and often do. And there is never a line. You go in and you fill out the little form, and there's never a line. We know that there are places around Atlanta where people are waiting for hours to vote, and most of them are working class and African American neighborhoods. And so, and when I've been out running on election day, I've been in areas like Dunwoody where there are no lines, no waiting. People just drive up, go in. I've seen it. The parking lots are virtually empty, and it's a polling place.
I live at a polling place, and I go downstairs. When I go downstairs to vote, I have never waited in the 3 years that I've lived in this building in Brookhaven. I have never waited. The polling place is right downstairs. I usually go down very early because I'm going to start poll watching. And I get my lawn chair and I'm outside. 154.
A lot of this is both, racial suppression and working class
and economic suppression. Yeah.
Because the poor whites think they have the privilege of voting, and they're told that that they're honest, and voter suppression is really directed at all of these immigrants and other people who commit voter fraud, and they're safe. But in fact, most poor whites in the South don't vote, and they've had decades, generations of experience of being pushed out of the voting rolls by poll taxes and grandfather clauses, which are used not just to allow people, grandfather clauses in the Jim Crow era, when they were not only were they used to give people the vote if your grandfather was in the Confederate Army, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also they were used to exclude people.
Oh, most definitely. My grandfather was given Latin to read after he read the Constitution. South Carolina. He was the principal of the colored high school. They gave him Latin. So after he couldn't read Latin, he said, "I guess you don't intend for me to vote today."
Yeah, and the one about how many marbles are in the the jar.
Yeah.
But
let's get some call in before you jump back in, David. Let's put the call-in number out. If you're watching us on this broadcast, we want to thank you. There's a lot going on around us. We have to be vocal. We have to be politically engaged. Call in and talk to us. We are at 929-477-3442. We have posted the number again, 929-477-3442. Call in, talk to us. David and John and I, we are notorious for talking, amongst ourselves, but we would definitely love to hear from you. So again, 929-477-3442. I see a lot of you watching and chiming in with your comments, but definitely call in. Go ahead, David.
I think we should we should maybe shift the topic to the issue of corruption. Real, the corruption that's been going on. That's part of a culture of impunity that's emerged, since the Reagan years, in fact. And we have a series of financial scandals that really are the direct result of shifting the Department of Justice from fighting and policing white collar crime to street crime that around drugs. And so we had the savings and loan scandal in '87. We had the which included, by the way, John McCain, one of the Keating Five. Remember that savings and loan guy who got the senators to get him special favors. Enron at the end of the Clinton, beginning of the W. Bush years. The elimination of the Glass-Steagall Act, from 1933, the creation of a whole system of moral hazard, as they call it, where everything that banks do, they get bailed out. What started out as protection in the Glass-Steagall Act, 1933, creating the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to protect savings of people in the banks, turned into a way of protecting the big banks themselves. So this all was the groundwork for the 2008 crash.
But getting back to where we are today, I mean, the corruption that we're seeing with the Trump administration, with Cohen and all them, the first two congressmen who endorsed him have now been charged with corruption. In fact, Duncan Hunter is, Republican representative from California, is blaming the misuse of campaign funds on his wife.
Oh, really?
On his wife. That's pretty low down.
That's the Virginia governor's defense. Remember
Of course.
But
let me before you get back in, I mean, that's the connection with what's going on. So people may not understand the corruption that's going on with the White House right now. It's very similar. It's about in-kind contributions. It's not just about giving money to a campaign. You cannot give anything of financial benefit to a campaign without reporting it. That's a violation of federal campaign laws. That's what Cohen pled guilty to and
implicated
in serving, and he implicated President Trump. Plus, there was a tape where they discussed it. There's a tape.
Nothing works better than tape, right?
Lie about it. This is 1973, 74 all over again. This is Watergate #2. They have him on tape planning the payoffs to Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. And there are more tapes to come. Trust me.
Sorry, John. I was also going to mention that this Duncan Hunter is Duncan Hunter Jr. His father had the seat before him, right?
Yes.
What are we talking? I mean, we have an aristocracy in the what do you call it, in the Congress.
And we always have an aristocracy. Yeah. George Washington was the richest colonist in the 13 colonies. Yeah. Howard Zinn pointed that out in his landmark book, A People's History of the United States. That was what George Washington was, the richest colonist.
Yeah.
We're an elite. These were not poor farmers. These were a rich elite. It was a squabble among the elites in the United States and Britain. That's all it was.
And by the way, the state in the United States in the antebellum period in the 1830s and 40s that had the most millionaires was Alabama.
Yep.
Alabama.
Yep.
That was where the giant cotton plantations were with dozens, if not several hundred, African American enslaved people working. Those people were the billionaires of the 1840s. So we really have to keep in mind who ran this country, and that there's a whole layer of people, what I'm keep on calling the 9.9%, that works for them and actually gets the benefits. The rest of us are, they're the ones who get the tax breaks. They're the ones who have the protection from competition, and we're I'm trying to read this.
I'll just thumbs up to that comment. That's so true.
It's already implicated because of the hundreds of thousands of dollars Saudi Arabia is spending at his hotels while he gives them U.S. weapons to aid and abet a genocide in Yemen.
That is so true. Yemen has been going through it now since the unification of the country, actually, and it's we used to be North and South Yemen, but it's a horrible situation there, as is Syria. It's just horrendous. But these centers of power, what C. Wright Mills called the apparel elite back in the 50s. I mean, these centers of power are controlling the large wealth in this country. But when it comes down to the middle class and the working class, and I think these differentiations do matter, because when it comes to everyday people like you and me, when it comes to getting jobs, Dave and I are retirees, but when it comes to getting jobs, there's preferences given to people who look a certain way or who belong to a certain socioeconomic group where they have the contacts that can get those jobs. And a lot of this is influenced by the economy and politics. As people commonly in the community say, it's who you know, often not what you know. And so it's very important to understand how politics does this. Politics is a spoiled system also. And people give jobs, they give positions to their friends. And crony politics and crony capitalism go together. And we've seen that with Trump's best people who are now finding out that they're heading to potential prison sentences unless the pardons come along. And we know Manafort is like playing for a pardon.
Well, I think this is speculation on my part, but I think that for Manafort and for Michael Cohen, one of the things that was going on is that they just never believed that they would be caught, and I think that's one of the reasons why Manafort has stuck, held on for so long, without going in and looking for a cooperation agreement, a proffer, as they say, and I think that really is based on this what I'm calling a culture of impunity. That tax evasion is ubiquitous, in these elite circles, and by that I must emphasize that this 9.9%. That's just below the 0.1%. They participate in this. They become the mass base for for this kind of moral, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the expression that they're using. Moral hazard.
Moral hazard. Yeah.
So the moral hazard has been there all along, because these people have been getting away with it, since the 1980s, and the fact that the Justice Department's whole center of gravity has shifted to what was shifted by the Reagan administration to street crime, to drug crimes, was part of what created this culture of impunity in the white collar. So I think one of the things that people learned, that these people, this 9.9%, the bankers and all of these folks from the Bernie Madoff scandal. Remember Bernie Madoff? Bernie Madoff was huh?
He took so many people's pensions and savings and 401ks.
Yeah. I mean, he was able to embezzle over the course of 25 years, $60 billion. Now, the lesson that came out of that was, well, Bernie Madoff finally got caught, but for 25 years, he was able to do this. Mm-hmm. And he brought before the SEC, he was brought before all of these agencies and his books were inspected, and he just kept getting away with it. So I really think that the lesson of the Bernie Madoff thing is that, holy cow, you could steal $60 billion and almost get away with it. It was not a warning to anybody. In fact, remember a few years ago, the guy who finally blew the whistle, finally got somebody to listen. He'd been blowing the whistle for years on Madoff. Finally got somebody to listen, and he said exactly what I'm saying now, which is the system doesn't work. There's no system of inspection that would prevent anybody from taking the risk of manipulating stocks and creating derivatives and all of these other things, because the part of it is the deregulation that took place in the first last year of the Clinton administration or the first year of the Bush administration, and then you got
the starve the beast mentality.
Yes, exactly.
Going around since really the Reagan administration is a way of cutting back financing so there can't be regulation, and then they argue for law and order on street crime, on other crimes, and then they can shift the resources to the control of poorer people of color, and then the wealthy can get away. But what I want to ask people right now is, what are we going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? What are you going to do about it right now? We have a November election coming up, which is crucial in that there is right now, no check on the behavior of our rogue, what I call gangster president. Yes, gangster. Gangster, G-A-N-S-T-A, G-A-N-G-S-T-A, gangster president. What are we going to do about it? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to work my tail off to get Lucy Macbeth elected in Congress. I'm going to work my tail off to get Stacey Abrams into the governor's chair. We've got to get back one branch at least of Congress, hopefully both, to put a check on. Yes, he is a thug. He's always been a thug. His father was a thug. His grandfather ran a brothel up in Canada, in Toronto. So my only question is he a sociopath or is he a psychopath? Is it inherited, which I tend to think, or is it environment? But we know it's there.
Well, as New Yorkers, also, John, we've watched this guy over the decades.
Since 1973.
He's and the other thing is that he was in bed with the mafia, with the Italian mafia, and the Russian mafia. That's been his history, is money laundering for organized crime. So I really think that anybody in New York who paid attention to politics knows what Trump was before he came in. He's a cross between a mafioso and P.T. Barnum.
He's like a bad Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
But someone just posted something just now, and about changing the head, of people who are in power. And Yeah, getting rid of Trump only changes the face of crony capitalism. And I get that. But my response to that would be, yes, that is true. That's a given. But right now, we have people who are losing housing subsidies for poor people. We have people who are being prosecuted for crimes by the Justice Department and police that are not being held accountable by the Justice Department. These things affect the lives of real people in their everyday life. We may not be winning the war, but we darn sure can win some battles like we just won today in Randolph County. And what I'm focusing on right now is us winning some battles right now. I know we have the struggle, the big struggle, but let's start with some of those small battles we can win, because it saves people's lives. And I come back, and the best example I know is the Affordable Care Act, because I had a pre-existing condition, lost my job, lost my insurance, and without that, before that existed, I would have been probably dead now. So those little things matter, and in people's lives. So let's fight to get Congress back. Even though it doesn't solve the problem, it can get some legislation. It may be able to save some students from being deported from the United States. I mentor 5 of them, 5 DACA students, and I care about their lives like I care about my own. And it's the things that these little things matter. Decisions that affect people matter. Getting people registered. I mean, Brian Kemp here in Georgia was attacking the New Voter Project, which Stacey Abrams had started a number of years ago, and started an investigation and found that they had done nothing wrong. His own investigation found they had done nothing wrong. They had found a few registrations from people that were duplicate, but they found, this wasn't even a New Voter Project overall, but they found no corruption. This whole argument of voter fraud is a mask for voter disenfranchisement. This is a battle that we need to win. My father told me stories growing up of how his grandfather told him in the 1880s and 1890s how this happened the last time. And it happened exactly the same way. The technology is different, but the process of disenfranchising people and keeping people from voting is the same. And I say, bring it on, because I'm going to fight you until my last breath is gone.
Corruption is real. What you think?
What's that?
I said corruption is real. What do you think?
Well, I've been just absorbed by what John was saying. I wasn't thinking much about my own observations, but I think that one of the things that you're bringing up is another tactic that's involved, and that is that registration in this country, registration to vote, which is something that no other democratically, or people, any country that has pretensions to being a democratic system has a system of registration. You are automatically registered as a citizen. It doesn't matter where you go. Your registration is portable. As long as you have a citizen's ID card, or whatever it is, it does not matter. You are in the system. And so everything and registration is all about controlling who votes and who doesn't. And for the most part, registration has been used in the South in particular to keep Black people from voting. Oh God, I'm having a senior moment here.
We know those are, but those are like.
The Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party.
Yes, 1964. Yeah.
Remember the woman who's the leader of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party?
Not Ledbetter. No, what? I heard he lived.
Fannie Mae.
Oh, Fatty. Oh, yeah, Fatty Mae Hamer.
Yeah.
Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yeah, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yeah.
Now remember what she said. She was testifying at the 1964 Democratic Convention about how many times she had been beaten and threatened, and her husband was beaten and threatened, anyway, that's a really, really important story about what happened to the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party.
I remember it. We remember it as current events.
Yeah, when they tried to unseat the Dixiecrat delegation. And Johnson came on the air to preempt the time that she was on national television to steal, her thunder. So, but this thing about registration is really important for the way in which the vote is controlled in the United States. And in the North, registration was used to keep immigrants, under control. Because the immigrants were being used in these Democratic Party machine politics in the city. So my point here is that suppressing the vote for the elite is a widespread practice to maintain control over the electoral system. You don't have any more property requirements for the vote, but you've got a lot of other hoops that poor people have to jump through. And by the way, when you do these voter caging things and you send out, these notices, who are the people who are most likely to not reply? It's people who don't have a home that they own, for instance, or renters, folks like that who move around much more often than homeowners do. Surprise, surprise. So voter caging actually affects large numbers of working people who do not own their own homes, who don't live in stable neighborhoods, or don't live in stable living circumstances, which is heavily African American, but is also working class whites. Those are the people who are the renters.
Yeah, we have a caller. Exciting. We always love to hear from callers. So let's see who we have on the line. Let's see if we can bring this caller in. Caller, are you with us? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for calling in. Yes.
Well, I'm just joining the conversation. So I heard you were talking about the voter purges and caging. Greg Pallas, who's an investigative reporter, reported on this several years back on the interstate cross-check system that was started by Chris Kobach, who is the Secretary of State of Kansas, and who possibly will be on the ballot running for governor in Kansas. And he also was on Donald Trump's voter, well, they call it Voter Integrity Commission, but it's really a voter suppression commission. And that interstate cross-check system is also being used by none other than the Secretary of State here in the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp. There was 500,000 people on the interstate cross-check, on the interstate, sorry about the noise, on the interstate cross-check list here in the state of Georgia. And what they do is, well, as your guest just described, if they send a little thing in the mail, well, first they look for name similarities. So let's say your name is James Brown. James Brown in Georgia, they try to mistake for being James L. Brown in Alabama, and they try to say, well, this possibly is the same person. So then they send a little thing in the mail that looks like an overdraft charge, like the little thing at the bank sends you a little small piece of mail. And when people receive it, if they don't respond to it, then that person is basically purged off the voter rolls. And right here in the state of Georgia, 6 months ago, I believe it was 7 months ago, Brian Kemp purged 591,000 people off the voter rolls. So these are voters who, so let's say they voted in 2008 in the Obama election, and then they didn't vote during the midterms, and then they try to vote again in 2012. They'll be purged off the voter rolls for not participating in continual elections. So that's what we're dealing with. Georgia has some of the worst voter suppression. So I'm hoping that people will get to the polls coming up here in November. If you're not registered to vote right now, you can go to sos.ga.gov. Make sure that you're still on the voter rolls, that you may be one of the people that was purged. And if you are purged, re-register, give them your new address and all that good stuff so that we have as many people as possible ready to go vote here in a few months. We have until October 9th to register voters. And a great organization to invite to your church or school is an organization called the New Georgia Project.
Yes.
NewGeorgiaProject.org is their website. NewGeorgiaProject.org is their website. And there's a phone number you can call there at their office. It's 404-996-6621. 404-996-6621. But I didn't mean to take up too much of your time. I appreciate that you're doing what you're doing.
And we thank you for calling in. We absolutely thank you. And someone actually posted it. So it's actually not just on the audio part of our broadcast. It's actually on the in the comment section as well. So that website is there. And we thank you for calling in, caller. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'd like to respond to a comment that was put up also. And I thank that caller for giving us that really useful, practical information. Barb Coleman posted a comment a little while ago about the potentiality for change under the present government. And it seems to me like there's a legacy of wealth and corruption that is at its base of our government. This is something that is so deeply entrenched that it seems as if probably impossible to dismantle. Can a fair and just system of government be implemented without overthrowing the government? The short answer, I would have to say, is no. Yes, I said no. But on the other side of the coin, we can still win small victories. It's like I always say to Tamara, racism is permanent. And she says, oh, that sounds so depressing. But to me, no. The optimism comes in is that there's small battles like Randolph County that we can win. There are, as Lena is saying, waves of corruption that come in, come out. And we have to fight against the powers that be. My favorite philosophical quote, and I know, David, you know it well, since I was, I guess, in the 8th grade, is the philosophers have analyzed the world in many different ways. The problem, however, is to change it. I used to use that on my papers in school coming up. Look at David smiling.
These theses on Feuerbach, yes.
And
Tamara, this is way over my head, y'all. So I'm still in this.
We're gonna have some fun here. Tamara, guess who wrote that quote?
We yanking each other's chains here. That's what we're doing.
No, this is my favorite quote. Guess it's on my YouTube, my Facebook page. It's on my Google Plus page as the #1 quote. Guess who wrote that?
Well,
I know you know. I know you know, Sarah.
Yeah.
Karl Marx.
Okay.
and supplementing that or going along with that is the quote from Frederick Douglass that the slave masters with a craftiness peculiar to themselves, succeeded in making the slave, rather than the slave system, the enemy of the white worker.
There you go.
That, I think, is really, really important for us to understand, that we need to reach out to working class whites and to show them that the privileges that they think that they have are really undermining their ability to get their real class interests represented and heard. And the only way they're going to do that, and the only way that we are going to draw them in, is through this, first of all, talking to them and showing them that there really is a different world out there, and that the only way that we're going to get to it is through solidarity. That is really, I think, so the question of reform, to me, is a question of the balance of power between capital and labor, right? And the more that labor is divided, the less likely it is, in this situation about fighting, with white workers fighting a two-fronted war against their own class, comrades, brothers and sisters, versus fighting the ruling elite. They can't fight the ruling elite. They're completely enthralled. They're the ones who are enslaved, in the present era. If they don't come over, if they don't vote for Stacey Abrams, if they don't vote for Lucy McBath, if they're just going to get more of the same old way of maintaining power through Republican tax cuts, which go 90% to the rich, and they scrape a few crumbs. They pick up a few crumbs off the table, and the system just keeps rolling along. The only way that they are going to be able to participate, and all of these folks these white liberals that are out there, that are all gung ho for Stacey Abrams and Lucy McBath and all of these other people, had better get with the program, because the program is that they've got to talk to whites, and they can't just talk to them by saying, "Oh, don't worry, Stacey Abrams is maybe black, but she's okay. Lucy McBath may be black, but she's really okay." That's the line that most liberal whites are trying to peddle, And what they've got to say is, you got to get with the program. Equality and social justice are in your interests, not just in the black people are not taking anything away from you. In fact, they're the secret. They're the road for you to get what you need, in the out of the system. And we need to learn. European Americans. I don't call people white. I think that's an insult. But European Americans have got to start working with each other, rehearsing the language that they need to use to speak to other white people, learning the stories that people tell, and figuring out ways to change the endings of those stories. That's what we're going to do. Tamara and I are going to do with the seminars that we're going to run at the end of the second and fourth Thursdays. So
she said, black people have been our allies for centuries. Yes, Lena, yes. And we're at the top of the hour, David.
Not only that, I go one step further. They've been leading the struggle. They've been leading the struggle. So thank you, Lena. That's beautiful, Lena.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, David, we are at the top of the hour. John, it is always a pleasure. These broadcasts, I look forward to them every single week. I think y'all have a little fan club, David and John. I was up on social media last night talking to someone about you, David, and about the class, the upcoming seminar that is called White and Woke. And how do I wake up other white people? You can join us for this seminar. It is on the website. I'm posting it. It's tamarashealey.com /acknowledge the divide. David and I always talk candidly about acknowledging that divide and getting to the root of it. Lena just brought it all home and made it all beautiful that yes, we're all on the same team. It's all love, Black and brown people, white allies. We're all in this game together. It's about us fighting the powers that be, and the smoke and mirrors that they've created with this race game is nothing, and we're fighting each other over nothing. So be a part of David and I. We're, like I said, we're hosting this series. It's a 4-week fall series. It'll be hosted over a series of 8 weeks in the month of September and the month of October. White and woke, how do I wake up other white people? If you are white and you are woke and many around you don't seem to get it, race and racism, race relations are at the root of this country's divide, and you're the only one talking about it. These are hard conversations to have with family and friends. However, they're proven methods, and David used stories, and I love stories because you really get to the root of the problem when you can hear those stories. So David is a master storyteller, and we work on stories. His proven methods, they work. So be a part of this series. It begins Thursday, September 13th. The second class will be Thursday, September 27th. The next one, Thursday, October 11th. And the last is Thursday, October 25th for this fall series. It's 6:30 to 9:30. It is online, so you could be in the comfort of your own home. We're going to all be online together. It's very active group of people, and it'll be a lot of fun, a lot of I hate to use the word fun, but David makes it fun. He has a personality underneath all of that. So it's a lot of love, and I participate to bring you the Black perspective, and sometimes hearing it from somebody other than somebody that's white, it kind of brings it all home. So great class, be a part of what we're doing. Again, the website is online. It's tamarashealey.com /acknowledge the divide. Mr. John Armwood has a YouTube channel, Armwood Opinion. Go on, take a listen to all his opinions about what's happening in technology. What is it? Technology, race, and politics. Yes. So go on and take a listen to Armwood Opinion on YouTube. He has some great videos out there. Thank you guys. Always a pleasure.
Okay. And I will leave you, as I always do, with resistance is not futile. Decide what you are going to do. Change now. And please post it below this broadcast on Facebook or Blog Talk, wherever you are. Please post what you are planning to do. We want your actions, your game plan down, because we have to get ready for November. This is serious. Thank you so much. Yes, awesome. And David, what you want to leave us with?
Power to the people.
Right on. Right on.
Right on. Have a great week. We'll be back same time, same channel. I am Tamara Johnson-Shealey. You can join me or follow me on my website, tamarashealey.com. We'll see you next week, Friday, same time, same channel. Thank you.